Well, Thanksgiving is less than 2 weeks away, and no doubt many of you watching will be gathered around the dinner table with family and friends. Here to help us navigate these conversations, because it can go in many different ways, with charity is Bill Duncan. He's a constitutional law and religious freedom fellow at the Sutherland Institute. Bill, how you doing today?
Good. Thanks so much for having me on.
It's great to have you. But before we get into family dinner table and discussions, can you explain what the Sutherland Institute is and
Sure,
what you do
sure.
there?
Yeah, so the Sutherland Institute is a conservative think tank in Salt Lake City, Utah. I have my role is we focus on lots of issues that are important in our state and kind of in this region, the Intermountain region of the United States. But my specific role has to do with typically legal issues. Religious freedom is the main one, which I think is the what we'll talk about today. But I also write on some other issues, filing briefs in the Supreme Court and other courts, and um, yeah, so that's our work.
And as Jay was saying, we're getting into that time of year as people head into the holidays and perhaps anticipating conversations with family, friends, or even their own children that they might disagree with. What's a good principle going into this for people to remember?
Well, that's such a great question because there's sadly there is some research that shows that people are more willing to end a relationship over disagreements about politics or religion than maybe has happened in the past. And of course, it's rarely worth having that kind of that level of disagreement. So, I think the key thing that we've as we've been sort of learning more about this issue and ways to promote some kind of discussion, particularly about religion. The number one issue I would say is that when we're open to the other person, what they're thinking about and their approach, that allows for a discussion to happen, which even allows for us maybe to share things we know are important. But we can talk about that more as we go along, I'm sure.
Mm. And how can people discuss religion in a civil manner? Can you give us an example? Because
Yeah,
a lot of times you start talking about religion and it's a runaway train.
right. Right. Well, and, part of it is that we're all bringing our own background into those kinds of discussions, and so here's the genesis of this for us. A couple of years ago we wanted to figure out why is it that there seems to be so much antipathy towards religion among people, particularly younger people, who because we've all heard about the growth of people who are not affiliated with any religion, that's a larger proportion of the society than has been in the past. And we thought, what would it take for them to be able to maybe feel like they understood religion and had some appreciation for people of faith? So we've been writing about things that we believe that would be helpful to know, like the contributions that religious people have made. Is specifically, one kind of funny example is to the holiday of Thanksgiving. Um, and so we've been writing on these issues, and then we decided let's take some of the things we've learned and go to a group of potential voters who say they're not affiliated with any religion and see what messages kind of make a difference for them. And what we learned a lot of things, but two key ones that relate to your question are people don't like to be told, well, because of my faith, I'm here's all the ways in which I'm better and more functional than you. So, and that's not surprising. Nobody
Yeah.
likes to hear that. But then also, we also found though that people are pretty open to hearing about what's important to a person of faith, and why they do what they do, their motivations, and then some of the evidence that it makes a difference in our lives and lives of other people. So those are things that we learned in our efforts over the past few years, and that's kind of been our focus. Is you can share what you believe, just be careful of the way you do that, and help people see there really are great advantages to a life of faith.
And continuing along those lines too, some people, might be afraid to speak about their views, maybe sort of keep the peace, for instance, like pro-life views. What would you say to them, maybe how they might broach it or how they bring it into any conversation?
Yeah. One of the specific kind of phrases that seem to make a difference in the survey is if you say something like, Um, lots of different people have lots of different views, but here's kind of the way I see this. And if you focus very much on the personal, that seems to make a difference for people. I think we all have kind of not all, but we hope we have a feeling of just general respect for another person, that we're willing to listen if we think it comes from a place of sincerity. And so the focus on the I, this is what I think, this is how I see things, really helps. Um, and um, and of course, that's going to be heightened if we're also willing to listen right to the other person, so the way they see things. But I've noticed over time on the pro-life issue specifically that people have often not heard a good argument. And so they just assume there is none. But when you say, well, this is what I believe, this is why I think that this issue is so important. Unborn children deserve protection, and um, that sometimes is surprising and disarming. And so that can then create space for a discussion. And we're less likely to say, if we say, oh, I support this politician, then oh, I hate him, that kind of discussion. But if you say, here's how I feel about this, I think people just naturally, appropriately seem to want to say, okay, well, thank you. Thanks for sharing. Here's how I see it. And that's a totally different kind of conversation.
Well, Bill, thank you very much. This has been helpful. I don't want to see turkey legs and stuffing flying across the table.
That's right.
No, this has been great. How can people learn more about the work that you do?
Yeah. So we have a website, sutherlandinstitute.org. We have a podcast that I'm using the studio that we use for that to do this. That I think is just great. And then we have specifically, if people are interested in some of the reports we've done on the social benefits of religion, they're under the tab research on the sutherlandinstitute.org. And Sutherland is Sutherland, the only U.S. Supreme Court justice from Utah.
Very good. Bill, again, thank you so much and have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks. You too.